Hi everyone, Gemma here, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a plan with me video for my December bullet journal theme. Now I haven't done a bullet journal plan with me in like 18 months, so it's been quite a long time, and normally I don't do plan with me videos because I use my bullet journal as a journal more than a planner, so I don't think it would be that interesting normally. But obviously December there's lots more going on, I plan a lot more, so I thought it would be a good one to show you my journal with. But before we get into it, if you enjoy journaling, calligraphy or stationery, then subscribe for similar future content. First up is my December cover page. Now I normally don't create cover pages, but I thought as it's the last month of the year that it would be nice to add one. My favourite thing to draw recently has been Christmas puddings, and I actually have a Christmas card design featuring them. If you want to learn how to draw Christmas puddings, I'll link the Christmas card video from this year down in the description. I use my red brush pen to write the word December in calligraphy. I'm using my Pentel brush pens a lot for this month, particularly the red and the green. I'm using my Uniball Signo pen to create the outline of the Christmas pudding, my red Pentel brush pen to colour in the berries, and a dark green WH Smith brush pen to colour in the leaves. I had a bit of a mishap when colouring in the Christmas pudding base, as the Christmas pudding was larger than the ones I'd normally drawn, and the pens ended up being very streaky and it looked drier in some places. I contemplated going back to colour it in further, but I was already conscious that there might be a little bit of ghosting or bleeding, so I decided to leave it as is. Moving on to my next page, I started with stripy paper to the left hand side. I'd actually initially thought this was washi tape, so I was surprised to find out that it wasn't sticky, and it ended up throwing a bit of a spanner in the works because I'd planned to use this stripy washi tape throughout all of my journal spreads. Now I could have stuck it on manually, but not only would that have been a hassle, I'd run out of glue rollers that I normally use. I did find some PVA glue, but it was broken, so the glue came out blobby on the first piece, and I think it was really obvious on the other side of the page that it had been used, as it crinkled the page. So I changed my plans and decided not to use the stripy paper. Anyway, the page on the left hand side is dedicated to my monthly review. So what I've been watching, what I've been listening to, and what games I've been playing. It also covers how I was feeling and what I was up to. This page is a page that I always include in each month's setup because they're pages that I love to reflect back on to see what I was up to in that point of my life. Now onto the page on the right hand side. I generally omit calendars from my journal now, as I find that I don't tend to use them. I do like a monthly view page in December though, as I find that there's always more going on, although admittedly that might be a bit different this year. I was meant to have the washi tape at the bottom of this page so it was a little bit more interesting, but because I decided against that, I was left with a little bit of white space at the bottom, and I couldn't decide what to put there, so if you have any suggestions of what I could put in that area, please let me know down in the comments. Onto the next page is a card and gift tracker. I erased the part where I intended to have the washi tape and continued to sketch out the Christmas lights doodles to the top, and I actually think that it was a better decision. I think it may have looked disjointed if there were lights coming out of this stripy washi tape, so I think it's for the best. I used my Uniball Signo gel pen to outline the Christmas lights. I've used this brand of pen so much this year. I use them for normal writing in my journals and for lots of doodling. It's the pen I use for when I'm drawing things on cards as well. In the past I probably would have used Sakura Micron pens, but I actually found that they wore out fairly quickly and they weren't as smooth to write with, like you had to hold them at a certain angle. Drawing these lights, the light bulb shapes varied a little. A few are different sizes and some are pointier than others. Now this wasn't intentional, but one thing I've learnt about journaling in my several years of journaling is just to accept imperfections. When I was creating these lights as well, I wasn't sure whether to colour in the bases of the lights. I wasn't sure what colour would work best, and normally I'd think of a green colour, but because I had green bulbs already and wasn't sure what it would look like with the black wire, I decided just to leave it, because I found that if you're unsure and colour it in, it always tends to be a mistake, so I decided to leave it as is. Before I colour in the Christmas lights, I use my brush pens to write gifts and cards in brush calligraphy. The Christmas lights were definitely one of the most time-consuming parts of my December setup this year. My December setup actually took quite a long time. It took an hour and a half, so even though this video is quite long, it's definitely a condensed down version. Once I finish outlining all of the Christmas lights in my black gel pen, I colour them in using my Pentel brush pens. I'm using a red, yellow, green and blue. I colour them in an ordered way. I start with my red and then colour in every fourth light using the pen, and then do the same with the other colours. To be honest, once it was all coloured in, I didn't even notice the bases, as your eyes are automatically drawn to the bright bulb colours. I have a gift tracker and then a card tracker. Now, I'm normally someone that leaves Christmas present shopping really last minute, so I made it a goal this year to buy everyone's presents before the 1st of December. And because I've stuck to this, I don't actually need space this year for present planning, because I've already done that side of things. However, I still need to wrap, add the gift tag and give them their gift. I've based both the gift tracker and the card tracker on a card tracker that I had back in 2019, as I really like the layout. So each time I progress, I colour in one of these little circles. The circles on the gift tracker stand for decided, bought, arrived, wrapped and gift. The circles on the card tracker stand for design chosen, created, addressed and sent. One thing I love about sending Christmas cards out each year is I love choosing designs that fit with that person's personality. So for example, my boyfriend prefers kind of minimalist designs, whereas one of my sister really loves lots of colour. So I have these 10 card designs ready to choose from that I'll allocate to each person. If you recreate this spread, I definitely recommend penciling the names out first so that you know exactly how much space you need. Otherwise, I imagine that would be a bit frustrating. This is definitely one of my favourite designs this year, if not my favourite. I really think I will recreate this design in the future. Onto my next page is my Christmas bucket list, but I've called it a festive list. I find that everyone tends to have their own Christmas tick list, whether it's favourite foods or songs or films that you like to enjoy during the festive season. Last year, the lead up to Christmas for me was a bit rubbish. I'd just moved into my first home, which was great, but there was so much to do that I was completely burnt out, and I didn't have the energy to celebrate Christmas in the normal way, so I'm excited to have a bit more energy this year. I've created 3 categories: movies, music and activities. My top Christmas films are The Holiday, Christmas with the Cranks and Bridget Jones's Diary. It was a bit of a tradition whenever I had Christmas around my mum's house for us to wrap presents on Christmas Eve whilst watching Bridget Jones. It was always very last minute, but I don't know, it just became part of the routine, and I guess it became part of our family tradition. A new Christmas song that I discovered last year was the song Wishes by Oland. I absolutely love this song. It feels so uplifting and Christmassy. I definitely recommend adding it to your Christmas playlist this year. What I'll do is I'll link it down in the description if you want to give it a listen. And let me know what's on your Christmas checklist, and if there's any songs or films that you feel are underrated and you would like me to check out. I decided to go for a bauble at the bottom. I did make a mistake in my colour scheme though, because the grey and the green ended up looking a little bit like a grenade. I ended up using a gold gel pen to try and make it more bauble-y. At least I know for next time not to go for that colour scheme because I'm not so keen on it. Onto my next page, I'm moving into the weekly spread setup. The weekly spreads that have really worked for me this year have been drawing boxes in this way by using just my brush pens to the left hand side. I found this layout preferable to ones where I had to draw a layout, as I found those a hassle and I'd end up delaying on journaling day to day. Also, because it's a set number of lines, it's reduced the burden of feeling like I had to document literally everything that was going on in my life. I did make a little mistake on the first spread. I sketched out 7 boxes ahead of time thinking that the last one could be used for a notes section, but I completely forgot when it came to creating the spread, so I wrote a 7 on the last box. I prefer to lay out my weeks from Monday to Sunday and start a new month starting with the first of that month, so there should have only been 6 days in this spread, but I don't think it matters too much. My advice to you, if you make a mistake like this, is generally to ignore it. I find that whenever I try to make a correction, it always ends up being far more obvious than a little mistake like an incorrect number. Now, this year's December setup has probably been my absolute favourite because I've personalised it to me a lot more. I've decorated each weekly spread with something that I tend to do that week in the festive season. So the first week is always the week that I tend to put up the Christmas tree. I have a little tradition where I make a hot chocolate, put on Christmas music for the first time, and have a mince pie whilst putting up the tree. I wasn't sure whether to decorate the tree in this spread, as I was conscious that there may already have been some ghosting on the page after, and I thought that if I added a few layers it may cause bleeding, so I decided to leave it. Looking back though, I think I'll probably add some decoration to it later. This design is similar to one I did for Christmas cards this year. If you want to make some Christmas cards, I'll pop a link in the description for you. I use calligraphy for the week 1 heading and the phrase "Oh Christmas Tree." Moving on to the second week, I've gone for the same layout for the daily journal entries with boxes to the left hand side of each page. I've used calligraphy again for both the heading and the quote. This time I've written "Have fun in creating." I've gone for this quote because the second week of December is normally the week that I get creative and I create all of my Christmas cards and send them out. I've drawn a few card doodles that feature my Christmas card designs from both this year and last year. I thought that was a really cute idea, and they're probably my favourite doodles because it feels really personal. The card designs I've gone for have been ones that have featured a red and green design, so that it's still consistent even though it features designs I've done in the past. On to week 3, again the layout is largely the same. The theme I've gone for in week 3 is relaxation. This is the week that I tend to get extra festive and watch my Christmas films and enjoy Christmas goodies. The doodles I've gone for are hot chocolate, Christmas chocolates, a mince pie and fluffy socks. For the Christmas chocolates, I've drawn Quality Street chocolates as they're the most distinctive and I think the easiest to draw. Now, I don't know if Quality Street are UK specific. If they are, I imagine those outside of the UK are wondering why I've drawn a green triangle and an orange octagon, but for those within the UK, I'm sure they'll get the reference hopefully. For the fluffy socks, I've gone for a looser colouring in style using my red Pentel brush pen. Now, I think I made a bit of an error on the mince pie in my choice of colours. I'll just say it's a burnt mince pie because it's really dark, and I think the grey was a bit too dark as well, but again, like I said, you need to accept mistakes sometimes. On to week 4, the layout is the same, but I've gone for present doodles, as this is obviously the week of gift exchanges. I was considering doing patterned wrapping paper, but I knew that there was probably more room for error if I did that, so I just coloured in the bows and the ribbon, and I've shaken it up by using both red and green. I also drew a gift tag that says "Wishing you joy." I really liked how this one turned out, and I'm glad that I didn't go OTT with the wrapping paper and that I only covered the ribbon. I like that it's a consistent colour scheme. Moving on to week 5, same layout obviously, but it has less days in it. I've given New Year's Eve more room as there tends to be more going on. For the theme, I've drawn a journal as the last week of December is when I reflect on the year, and that's when I tend to set up my journal for next year. It's the part of the festive season that I really enjoy. On the other page, I've written Festive Period Review in calligraphy. Now, this is different to the December review as it's more about remembering my favourite part of the Christmas holidays and things that I've loved this year that are more Christmas specific. It gives me more room to remember kind of what happened around Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and things like that. If you enjoy journaling, I'm actually working on a video with a bunch of journal prompts to reflect on what has been an interesting year, to put it mildly, so keep an eye out for that. Until then, here is my flip through. My favourite spreads were the Christmas card and gift tracker, week 2 and week 4. Let me know what your favourites were down in the comments, and until then, thank you for watching.